What's going on, Guardians? It's Tizzle here, and in this video, I'm going to be showing you how to make your melee hit for more damage than a Celestial Nighthawk Golden Gun. And no, I'm not kidding, this build is the real deal. It centers around the exotic arms Liar's Handshake. Now look, I love Liar's Handshake. I crutched on the Ad Clear Assassin build to solo flawless my first dungeon in Pit of Heresy way back in the day. But then, in Final Shape, Bungie introduced us to Prismatic, and now you didn't need Assassin's Cowl to make yourself invisible anymore. You could just throw on Stylus Executioner and Winter Shroud, and now you could go Invis just through your aspects, freeing you up to run Liar's Handshake instead. And the beautiful thing about this exotic is it increases your damage output 5-fold. And on top of this, it also heals you on every other punch. So you don't need red bar ads around to keep you alive, you can just keep punching an enemy to get your health back. This also makes it slightly more valuable than Syntheseps in my opinion, because if there are no ads around, you can still deal great damage. And the Spirit of the Liar class item perk doesn't give you the health back. So originally, this video is going to be breaking down all the damage numbers, but because I don't totally understand additive buff compounding, I'm not really able to do that. I knew multiplicative buff stacking, but yeah, this new system I don't totally understand. So instead, I'll just break down what buffs are occurring. We have 3 stacks of Combination Blow to give us 5 times more melee damage, 2.33 repeating for 1 stack, 3.66 repeating at 2 stacks, and 5 times for 3 stacks. Next, we have a 5 times damage multiplier for our cross counter punch with Liar's Handshake. Next, we have a 2.3 damage multiplier for punching a frozen enemy. Next, we have a 4 times damage multiplier from Stylus Execution when we punch coming out of Invis. But again, the more stacks of Combination Blow you get, the more diminishing returns that you get from Stylus Executioner. This punch also weakens the target by 15%, which is a multiplicative buff, as is 30% from a tractor cannon, for instance. Next, we have a 1.5 times damage buff from Facet of Courage, but that is without any stacks of Combination Blow. When we do have Combination Blow, then the buff goes down with each stack, only amounting to 1.0625 times more damage at 3 stacks. But still, a buff is a buff. The final multiplier you can have is actually on your gear. If you get 200 melee stat, then that will be an additional 30% more melee damage, and this one does stack multiplicatively. For my testing, I was at 183 strength, which was the highest I could get, and I was hitting for 24.7% more damage. Another super cool thing to note is now all this stacking works with grapple melees, and as you can see, I get it to hit for over 10,000 damage, which again is more than a Celestial Golden Gun. It takes a lot to get everything to line up, but when it does, it's beautiful. So now that you know all the buffs we have going on, how about a build? You can use your fragments as stat sticks to give yourself more melee damage, and in fact, I took Facet of Dawn off just because even though it gives us Radiant, it takes away 10 from our melee stats. I played around and tinkered with a lot of different potential solutions, but here's what I landed with. You want Silk Strike so that you can get Woven Mail whenever you pick up an Orb of Power. This massively helps with survivability. Gambler's Dodge to get your melee back when you dodge, Grapple Grenade for movement and also for big melee damage when the time is right, Winter Shroud to apply slow for Facet of Courage, and Freeze for that extra melee damage on a frozen enemy, as well as to proc Stylus Executioner for going Invis for survivability, and this also gives us more melee damage when coming out of Invis, and as I mentioned, it will also weaken the target if it doesn't outright kill it. For fragments, first we have Facet of Purpose. It does give us -10 to class, and class is very important as I will get to in a moment, but this gives us Woven Mail, which is even more important. Or Void Overshield if you prefer to run Tether, or Restoration with Solar. The choice is yours. Regardless, this fragment really helps with survivability and endgame content, so it is important. Facet of Sacrifice so that we get bonus Darkness Transcendence energy when we have a light buff. We're getting a ton of arc kills with our melee, so this helps fill the darkness meter. This one is definitely not mandatory, and you are free to swap it out with Facet of Dawn for near constant Radiant instead, but you will hit for less melee damage. The choice is yours. Facet of Protection gives us more melee stat and gives us 15% damage resistance when we're surrounded by enemies, which we basically always are with this build. And lastly, Facet of Courage, which I have talked about. Again, at 3 stacks of Combination Blow, the benefit we get from this is drastically reduced, so up to you if you want to run it. But if you're trying to punch as hard as possible, then this one is the way to go. I was having a lot of fun pairing this build with Bastion or a 1-2 punch shotgun, as those both also increase your melee damage, and with Bastion, your melee also increases the damage of Bastion, so it has wonderful synergy. But run literally whatever weapons you want. I soloed the Whisper mission on Expert with ease with this build, and it was a lot of fun. I've always loved that mission, and I've always loved this build, so yeah, it was really fun to hop back in for the day. Onto the mods, Dynamo and Hands On is the way to go on your helmet. This will give you lots of supers. Every time you dodge near an enemy, you proc Dynamo, and every melee kill you get procs Hands On. Onto the gloves, triple heavy-handed to reduce your orb generation cooldown from 10 seconds to 1 second. This gives you near constant orbs, proccing Facet of Purpose almost constantly, so you always have DR from Woven Mail or whatever super you decide to run. On the chest piece, just go with resistances that match the activity, but Concussive Dampener is excellent here since so many bosses like to stomp. On the boots, I went with Better Already and Recuperation for health bumps and Absolution to reduce all ability cooldowns, even though that's not really needed because you always have a dodge or melee if you run this build properly. And lastly, on the class item, I have Bomber, which will proc every time I do a dodge, Powerful Attraction, which will suck up orbs on every dodge, again allowing us to always have Facet of Purpose, and to keep proccing our boot mods, and finally, Class Font. This gives us plus 20 to our class stat. It used to be plus 30, but this changed in Edge of Fate according to the patch notes. So here's the thing with the class stat. If you don't have 60 stat, then you won't get your full dodge back from Combination Blow, and that really sucks. You need it back after every punch. But there are many ways to mitigate this. I tried Focusing Strike on my gloves, but this then takes away from heavy-handed, so it's not worth it. You could use stat mods to get you to 60, but then that's taking away from melee damage. So with my setup, it worked perfectly. Yes, I only had 32 class stat, but I would get plus 20 from class font, and as I said, I basically always have this up. As long as you get a melee kill to start, then you can dodge, which picks up the orb, which procs class font, and also gives a chunk of dodge energy from Absolution on your boots. But this was the workaround that I had to do because of my stat splits. If you want to perfect this build, you will have 60 class points, 200 melee points, and the rest truly doesn't matter. That is this build perfected. Then you could run scavenger mods or holster mods or whatever you want on your boots instead. And you wouldn't need class font, but yeah, just adjust your mods and stat distributions however you need to so that you're always getting your dodge back after a combination blow melee kill. It's not too hard, you'll just have to do a bit of tinkering to find out what works for your armor. And now we get to the artifact mods. I didn't scour the mods too heavily, but there is one that will crank this build up to 11, and that is also why I run Facet of Purpose. In the final column, we have a mod called Shield Crush, which states, while you have Woven Mail, Frost Armor, or Void Overshield, your melee recharges faster and deals increased damage. According to the compendium, it's a 25% damage buff. And I would think that this one's multiplicative, but I don't know for sure. Regardless, it's a must run with this build. It will allow you to hit even harder and maybe even be able to one-shot champs in the hardest of content. And that's it for the build. As I said, I soloed the Whisper mission on Expert with relative ease with this build. It did take me some time of tinkering and working out the kinks and finding the best playstyle and best balance between melee damage and survivability, but once I did, it was GG's. Because of the changes to melee stacking, I don't think it hits as hard as it did before Edge of Fate. You could literally one-bang champs in GMs when everything lined up properly, but even still, you can 2 or 3 punch the champs in the Whisper mission with ease, and as long as you're killing them in one stun, that's all that really matters. Oh, and one thing I forgot to mention, but I noticed in my footage playing back, one really terrible thing with this build is on the cross counter especially, a lot of times the punch doesn't land. So hopefully Bungie can get that fixed. But yeah, if you're noticing a lot of my punches or when you're using this build that the punches just aren't hitting, that's been a thing pretty much ever since Liar's Handshake came out. So I just wanted to mention that. It's very annoying and who knows, hopefully it gets fixed, but I doubt it will. I've wanted to make this build for literally over a year at this point, so I'm glad I finally got to. If you found the video helpful, a like would be appreciated. I have to edit my Death Stranding 2 review, which will be up on my other channel, so if you're interested in my game reviews or thoughts on the gaming industry, go follow that channel. As for this one, I'm not sure if I will have more Destiny uploads. I would like to make a Peregrine Greaves build, but it would be super basic. Just throw on Peregrine Greaves and profit. Seriously, try them out, they slap. They're goated for quickly deleting champs, even in GM level content. But as for this build and the one I showcased yesterday, those are the ones that I really wanted to show off. So now that I have, I'm maybe done for a long while. It was fun to hop on Destiny for a day and test out the new changes. I love the testing ground, and it made testing this particular build so much easier than it was in the old Nessus Lost sector. I'll be streaming Donkey Kong Bonanza on Thursday if all goes according to plan, and for basically the next week. Though I am sure most of you will be watching the day 1 raid and playing Edge of Fate, but if you want to swing by and say hey, then follow my Twitch at itstizzle7. Anyways, it was really nice to make some build videos for you again. It was that passion that inspired me to do YouTube in the first place, so it's always fun to come back and do a video like this. I hope you're enjoying Edge of Fate, and if this build helps you in the day 1 raid or some other hard content, then let me know down in the comments. Thanks for watching if you're still here, and I'll see you when I see ya. Take care.